Hello, it's Rachel from Aeolian Heart Astrology, and I am back with another seasonal forecast. This, of course, is for Taurus, which is the middle of spring. And I really want to talk to you guys about Taurus season this year because this is not going to be the chillax, slow and steady wins the race kind of Taurus season that we're used to. The reason why is because we're going to be having our eclipse season in Taurus this year. And the presence of Uranus in Taurus is going to activate a lot of unexpected shifts. So I want you to kind of consider that the stable ground of Taurus this year is a lot more like shifting sand. Now, before I get started, if you like astrological forecasts from me, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's really important that I get subscribers so I can keep spreading this kind of information out there, which is very useful for a lot of people who love astrology and history and art, etc. So, for this very volatile, very radical Taurus season, I knew that I would have to choose an historical figure who was not only born with their sun in Taurus, but who also represented something a little unexpected from the sign of Taurus. We are breaking out of stereotypes here. And so in my search for this figure, I came upon Mary Wollstonecraft, who was the mother of feminism. And I say in this presentation that she was the very first eco-feminist. And if you're interested in learning what an eco-feminist is, then continue to listen. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft was also the mother of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. So yes, Mary Shelley was in the shadow of a very important mother who, like I said, was the mother of feminism. We have a lot that we owe this woman, and she was born with her sun, her moon, and her Mercury in Taurus. So how is it that somebody with so much stable earth represents such a radical vision of how society should function? You'll have to stay tuned to learn more. Now, before we dive into this season's forecast, I want to remind you that I am actually going to be offering a very special workshop that's dedicated to the eclipses this year. Eclipses are tremendous opportunities for radical transformation, alchemical transmutation, if you will. And so I'm going to be having a special eclipse workshop on April 30th. If you would like to attend, please click the link in the description box below. Yes, it's free. Just come if you want to learn. And once again, share and subscribe if you would. And now it is time for the seasonal forecast for Taurus. On April 19th, the hot flames of Aries season will soften into the mellow yellow of the sun in Taurus. The transformation of cardinal fire into fixed earth signals a time to slow down and relax so that you can develop your taste for life. When the agitation of ticking time melts down into a languid rhythm, you come back into harmony with the wisdom and necessity of patience. You are now in the heart of springtime, the stable conjunction that lies in between fire and air, action and ideas. In this place, the only thing that matters is the quality of time. As a Venus-ruled sign, the development throughout Taurus season is meant to inspire a deeper communion with nature in her most lush and fertile forms. The sole purpose of Taurus is to transform a barren wasteland into a pleasure garden. A cultivated paradise on earth represents the perfect harmony of co-creation with nature, where human needs and primal fruits converge in ecstatic bliss. Thus, within the heart of Taurian energies, there is always a seed intention to fructify, to beautify, and to flourish. stirred by fertile flowers and that lingering warmth. When the sun is in Taurus, the touch, taste, and fragrance of everything becomes elated by a new richness and depth. To live in appreciation of the quality of time is to see the world through the eyes of a poet. The gift of this season is to appreciate the quality of time with a patient mind and full embodiment in the senses. To sink into the senses is to let everything make an impression. These days will be remembered for their softness, for the scent, and the warm breezes twirling through the curtains. Now this year, the presence of Uranus and the upcoming eclipses in Taurus will disrupt the stability of fixed Earth with a tremendous quaking, primed to catalyze major shifts in awareness and transformations. This kind of radical energy will really amplify the potential for unexpected challenges, naturally turning up the need for adaptability. The world is still saturated in the echoes of pandemonium, hyperinflation, and war. It is understandable that the news of a volatile eclipse season ahead is not very welcome at this time. Nobody wants to hear more about uncertainty approaching. But Taurus represents the wisdom of the earth, which thrives on patience and adaptability. In nature, when evolutionary pressure arrives, an intelligent response emerges to continue growth under any and all circumstances. When concrete suffocates the dandelion, that delicate flower miraculously finds the strength to break through. This Taurus season, be like the dandelion. Try not to focus on your fears of loss. Instead, focus on the potential that this eclipse season has to break through any stagnation that has been dragging you down in your relationships, in your finances, or in your creative work. You will need the virtue of patience and some dark humor to carry you through the journey ahead. Remember that desperate times call for radical new visions, and radical new visions often emerge from the seeds planted in the past. The best way to get to the heart of Taurian wisdom is to study the life and work of someone born under this sign. And though there are so many to choose from throughout history, the spirit of this volatile Taurian season ahead is best expressed by the ingenious political philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft. Born in England on April 27, 1759, with her sun, moon, and Mercury in Taurus, Mary Wollstonecraft expressed an earthy common sense by emphasizing the importance of the environment for healthy human development and the growth of virtues such as independence and self-sufficiency. Now, most people know Mary Wollstonecraft as being the mother of Mary Shelley, who authored Frankenstein. But Mary Wollstonecraft was an extremely controversial figure in her time, mostly due to her famous essay, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. This was her clear prescription for how to heal society through the education and advancement of women. Mary Wollstonecraft was bold, brilliant, and brave. Though she was not born an aristocrat, she chose a career in writing against all odds, and everything she wrote was founded upon common sense and ecological wisdom. In the 18th century, her ideas were mostly disregarded and vilified. A generation later, Wollstonecraft's vision of womanhood is thought to have inspired the many memorable characters in Jane Austen's novels. And over 200 years later, history now regards Wollstonecraft as the mother of feminism. But with her whole mind and heart tuned into the wisdom of the earth, I would say that Wollstonecraft was also the first eco-feminist. According to Wikipedia, ecofeminism is a branch of feminism that sees environmentalism and the relationship between women and the earth as foundational to its analysis and practice. As a consummate Taurus, Wollstonecraft deconstructed many pre-existing moral ideas concerning sexual equality, using botanical imagery to depict her ideas. For example, in describing the fallacy of woman's inherent dependence on man, she describes, quote, "the graceful ivy clasping the oak that supported it," unquote. Her purpose for this metaphor was to remind the reader that in a natural ecosystem, neither ivy nor oak is entirely independent nor dependent. And she suggests that there is a false romanticization that the clinging ivy is somehow submissive to the dominant oak, because that interpretation misrepresents the natural symbiosis of nature. Wollstonecraft's use of natural imagery also revealed how the feminization of nature had led to the industrial era notion that both women and nature are there to be dominated by men. It was the spirit of the dominator that was at the heart of the industrial era, all that raping and pillaging of the earth. And this was why Wollstonecraft was extremely critical of the Rousseauist notions about nature, that she claimed produced an artificial sentimentality rather than any real, tangible relationship with the earth. In her mind, this lack of real relationship with nature was the source of everything that was wrong with society. Now, in A Vindication of the Rights of Women, she also tackled the issue of children's education. She had been a school teacher for many years and spoke from personal experience. With great Taurian wisdom, her plan for the education for both sexes involved physical activity held outdoors, with an emphasis on learning about the natural world. She hoped to illustrate lessons with examples drawn from nature to invite a wholeness of mind, body, and spirit. She believed that the negative conditioning of children began by confining them indoors, creating a mental dependence. She says, "The child is not left a moment to its own direction, particularly a girl, and thus rendered dependent." She goes on to say that if children are confined indoors for too long, the pure animal spirits which make both mind and body shoot out and unfold the tender blossoms of hope are turned sour and vented in vain wishes and pert repinings that contract the faculties and spoil the temper. Wollstonecraft believed that confining children at home and school for long hours only teaches them dependence and servility, which in turn poisons society as a whole. Her natural antidote to the corrupting conditioning of dependence and servility was to encourage children to spend time in nature where they could be free of the corrupting effects of society and discover their true selves. In the 21st century, it has become very easy to believe that society has come such a long way. But 18th century industrialization has spawned the nightmare of corporate globalization, and children are still educated in confinement, subjected to all manner of behavior modification and drugs to nullify the pain of their discomfort. The reality is that the 18th century eco-feminist Mary Wollstonecraft remains radical to this day, and that's because she was translating the wisdom of the earth, the very heart of Mother Nature, into moral philosophy that still rattles the many cages that post-Enlightenment era societies have built. Wollstonecraft's legacy lived on through her daughter, Mary Shelley, whose novel Frankenstein prophesied the unholy iniquities that science would unleash if it remained possessed by the spirit of the dominator. And here we are in the 21st century, with science and technology having tampered with every living thing on the planet, all for profit and the satisfaction of dominating nature. Technocratic culture is based upon a condition of dependence and servility. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft also said, slavery to monarchs and ministers, which the world will be long freeing itself from, and whose deadly grasp stops the progress of the human mind, is not yet abolished. 200 years later, it is still not abolished. Now, the sensual sign of Taurus rarely gets credit for being the radical or being the innovator. But the more that human society is in disharmony and discord with nature, the more that the natural wisdom of Taurus will seem controversial and will threaten the power structures that be. I want you all to remember Mary Wollstonecraft at this volatile eclipse season of Taurus. There are many twists and turns ahead, but it is always possible to use all the breakthroughs and breakdowns to come into more harmony and alignment with nature itself. And it begins by breaking out of your confinement and letting nature become your greatest teacher of how life is truly meant to be lived. Now, in 2022, Taurus has a lot more action than usual. This season will bring 2 eclipses, the transit of Jupiter into Aries, and a Mercury retrograde. So the solidity and stability of fixed Earth is going to feel a lot more like shifting sand. But by the end of this 30 days, you may be set upon an entirely new path, and that could be a very wonderful thing. Now, April 30th brings us the solar eclipse in Taurus. The month of April concludes with an electric solar eclipse, which is conjunct to Uranus and sextile to Mars in Pisces. There is so much energy present in this moment to fight against gravity, oppression, and self-doubt. This eclipse is a breakthrough moment that will change the direction of your life in a subtle or dramatic way, depending on how much adjustment you require. The currents of Uranian energy will inspire you to try something new, to experiment with your art, your work, or your routine. A solar eclipse is a supercharged new moon. And because the moon is exalted in Taurus, this eclipse is a very fertile elixir for germinating the seeds of prosperity. And prosperity means growth in all ways: spiritual, mental, financial, social, in all ways. So I want you to envision an orchard, even if there is now only a seed. Take pleasure in every stage of the process of development, from the first blossoming and on unto decay. Hey, I just wanted you to know that this year I am going to be offering a special workshop that is dedicated to teaching the alchemy of eclipses. The reason why? Eclipses are supercharged lunation cycles that give us an opportunity to make some really tremendous changes in our life. Transformation, healing, catharsis, these are all eclipse words. And so on April 30th at the solar eclipse in Taurus, I'm going to be offering a very special workshop. Now, if you are interested in signing up for this and learning how to tap into the full potential of this eclipse season, then please click the link in the description box below to sign up. Hope to see you there. On May 2nd, Venus will move into Aries. Now, it would be so nice if we could remain wrapped in the graceful bliss of Venus in Pisces forever, but all good things must come to an end, and on May 2nd, Venus is going to be reborn into the fire sign of Aries, which is traditionally the sign of her detriment. What that means is that when Venus is in Aries, it's more difficult to access or tap into her most celebrated qualities. In Aries, for example, Venus ignores mutual reciprocity in favor of expressing the raw power of individual selfhood. Venus is independent in this sign, and that makes her brilliant like a jewel, full of fire. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft said, "Independence I have long considered as the grand blessing of life, the basis of every virtue. And independence I will ever secure by contracting my wants, though I were to live on a barren heath." On May 11th, Jupiter is going to move into the sign of Aries. And if there's ever been a transit that believes that independence is the supreme grand blessing of life, it is Jupiter moving into Aries. Leaving his sign of rulership in the oceans of Pisces for the bold and fearless fire sign of Aries is going to bring a dramatic shift in tone in the middle of Taurus season this year, one that is going to inflame you with courage. Now, looking back on Jupiter in Pisces, that was a time that illuminated the power of dreaming. But when Jupiter moves into Aries, a torch will be lit that burns with the spirit of self-confidence and independence. So during this transit, there will be momentum in spades to boldly go where your dreams are calling you to go. It is time to take action. Anything that breeds dependency or servility is anathema to the spirit of Jupiter in Aries. Remember, Jupiter is the planet of wisdom and expansion, meaning that in Aries, good fortune and spiritual growth will be discovered by taking risks, having faith in yourself, and fighting for personal freedom. Only a day after Jupiter moves into Aries on May 12th, Mercury will retrograde in Gemini, one of his signs of rulership. Now, the season of Taurus inspires a certain patience and adaptability, and these two virtues will be very necessary to tap into when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini. Before Mercury retrogrades back into Taurus on May 21st, his days moving backward in Gemini are going to bring a surge of classic Mercury retrograde symptoms like getting misinformation, miscommunication, and a lot of glitching technology. This is because Gemini is the sign of information, and Mercury retrograde in the sign of information is going to mess with our technology. During Mercury retrogrades, the consensus seems to be that all the reliable rhythms we come to depend on start to skip a beat. Communication breaks down. Technology becomes unpredictable. So the more dependent and servile you are upon the algorithms of technology, the more fragile you become. And in this world where information is moving exponentially faster and faster, any unexpected ripple in that stream of data is considered to be an unholy aberration. But Mercury retrogrades are there to teach you how to adapt. These are also retrospective and contemplative times where you can strengthen your sense of history as well as respond to unexpected challenges with unbelievable wit. Anyone who has a modest understanding of neurological function knows that intelligence demands flexibility. This is also called neuroplasticity. As we all know, plasticity is the opposite of rigidity. And in neurological terms, rigidity is the beginning of death and decay. So I want you to think of Mercury retrogrades as very positive opportunities to stretch your mind, to remain adaptable and flexible under unexpected circumstances. This is good for your evolution. It's good for your development to have Mercury retrogrades. So enjoy. On May 16th, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio arrives. Now, a lunar eclipse is a supercharged full moon, and this one is particularly ripe for deep alchemical transformation. And that always begins in the darkness of death and destruction. I want you to think about this eclipse as an opportunity to really heal, to experience some kind of catharsis, to let go of the past in the name of a bright future. Now, this eclipse is in a harsh square to Saturn in Aquarius, making it a real horror show in terms of the emotional content. And with eyes wide shut, you may try to hide from what wants to be revealed. But the moon in Scorpio is in its fall. And that means it brings a very uncomfortable gaze into the darkness of personal and collective fears. The moon in Scorpio reveals the shadow, in other words, dredging up all the feelings that you've rejected and denied in yourself. All the pain that you've swallowed comes back to haunt you now. And under this influence, a smoldering heat burns within, coming out as rage or lust or hatred, whatever it is that you hide from. The more forbidden the feeling, the more narcotic it becomes at this eclipse. The shadowy energies of this lunar eclipse in Scorpio will be intensified by the watery trine to Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces. This represents the dangers of falling into a trance. Ask yourself what happens when you yield without considering the consequences to the hypnotic effect of drugs, of television, of even your own romantic delusions. Whatever comes through, it is time to face the darkness of the world within and without. And whatever you resist now will persist, haunting you for the remainder of the year. So use this opportunity for alchemical transformation and catharsis wisely. Finally, on May 21st, the Sun will move into Gemini. The Sun's transit into Gemini transforms fixed earth into mutable air. If Taurus season can be likened to the slow bloom of a fragrant flower, still, receptive, Gemini season could be likened to the buzzing excitement of the pollinating honeybee. In Gemini, everything lifts off of the ground, stirring the flowering of thought, the flowering of language, and the flowering of culture. Hello again. I hope you enjoyed that deep dive into the heart of Taurus season and into the heart of a really, truly great Taurus woman, Mary Wollstonecraft. Now, if you are interested in coming to my free workshop, Eclipse Season 101, don't forget to click the link in the description box below where you can register, and I hope to see you there. Lastly, if you enjoyed this video, if it brought you any value whatsoever, please like, share, and subscribe. That means a lot to me, and I will see you again next month in Gemini season. Peace out.